guys, it's Renee Lumpkin Roberts. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to talk about the difference between a private and a publicly owned shelter. So this is something I see in a lot of things like Facebook. People who just don't have the exact idea of what's the difference between the two, so I figured I'd give you guys some definitions and then some other options for animal sheltering. So a private owned shelter is a facility operated, A private-owned shelter is the facility operated for the purpose of finding permanent adoptive homes for animals, that is used to house or contain animals, and that is owned or operated by an incorporated nonprofit or non-governmental entity, such as a humane society or the ASPCA or an SPCA. A public-owned shelter is going to be a facility operated by the Commonwealth or any locality for the purpose of impounding or sheltering seized, stray, homeless, abandoned, unwanted, or surrendered animals, or a facility operated for some purpose under a contract with any locality. So a municipal contract is another word that you're going to hear me throw around a little bit in this video. Municipal contracts mean governmental permits issued to the company or any of its subsidiaries. Hear me mention a municipal contract a few times in here. A municipal contract is just a contract between the city, county, state, with non-governmental entities. So my shelter, which is the shelter I'm sure a lot of people who are coming to watch this video are going to be coming to listen to me talk about, is the Pearl River County SPCA. You see a lot on Facebook, people will refer to us as a private-owned shelter. We are. However, like I just described, a private-owned shelter does not mean that one person owns the animal shelter. Private shelter is the SPCA that has a board and has a board president and stuff. They own the shelter. However, we do operate with municipal contracts. So we have contracts with the city of Picayune and Pearl River County as a whole. And that just acts just so that when animal control, who we do not have animal control, but the city police department and the county sheriff's department do, when they take an animal into their care, they bring it immediately to the shelter to get it the adequate care that it deserves. So the Pearl River County SPCA is a public-owned shelter, a private-owned shelter. Most public animal shelters you hear of, in the definition it mentions impounding, which is more of an old-school term. Most animal sheltering places do not use the term impoundment anymore. If you look into the history of impoundment, it's not super pretty. Public animal shelters, though, don't get me wrong, are still filled with wonderful volunteers and staff who are still trying to improve the world of animal sheltering as well. But a public-owned shelter is usually run by the government or some locality of the local government. I've never had an experience with a public shelter because I've only dealt with the shelter here, which is private. Most public shelters, though, from what I understand, have much more funding. So our animal shelter, which I do plan on going into a video in a little bit more depth as far as our funding. However, the Pearl River County SPCA, which is a private-owned shelter with municipal contracts, our average expenses are about $600,000 a year. We only receive roughly, I think, $75,000 from the city and the county. Okay, so it doesn't hardly make a dent in what it costs to actually run the shelter. So a lot of our adoption fees, grants, and fundraisers and stuff are what bring the rest of those funds in, so that we can run an adequate shelter. However, most public animal shelters have much more funding from their government. Quick, easy video just explaining the difference between a private and a public-owned shelter and what a municipal contract is. The Pearl River County SPCA is a privately owned shelter with municipal contracts. And we're going to cut it off. Y'all have a wonderful day. If you have anything you want me to talk about specifically, feel free to leave it in the comments. Thank you so much.